But in any case, Mary is officially a wildlife mitigation project manager. She's been with the city for about 1.5 years. She's given these talks before. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary and let her carry on. If any of you cannot read the screen up here for any reason, we have about 20 handouts that those who cannot read can have, or you can take the 20 handouts with you. There's other material up here on the table that you should grab at the end of the meeting. I trust all of you are good and signed in, so I can get back to you. Okay, thank you.
Hi everybody. The PowerPoint is also available on the website, but I did bring some printouts for those who cannot see to follow. Does anybody need them right now? Like John said, my name is Mary. I'm with the fire department. I want to thank you all for being here. You guys are all taking one step closer to increasing your survivability and increasing your comfort during the time of a disaster. So that in itself, I applaud you for being here. Being here is one step. There are many steps, and I'm going to be here to tell you about them. So the objective for this presentation is to understand really why preparedness is essential. John has really gone over a lot of the why. The location where you're at matters, your community matters, and the climate and just geographical location all matter. So we know that you guys are kind of a little stranded away, you only have one exit, so we want to make sure you guys can take care of yourselves until first responders can get to you. This is 60 minutes. I might talk fast. If you have questions afterwards, my information is on the slide, my information on the website, and I brought some business cards as well. Feel free to reach out if you have any further questions. But I'm going to go over how to have a plan and have supplies. But know that you are not alone. We have the county, we have the city, and you have your neighbors. So at any moment in time, you're not alone. So I'm going to go over a little bit about hazards and incidents. We have a lot of hazards in the Bay Area, earthquakes, in some areas flooding. Here, for the most part, we're kind of concerned with earthquakes and wildfires. So that's kind of what we're going to focus on. There's a difference between an emergency and a disaster, and for the most part, what we have here are mostly emergencies. So when one house is on fire, that's an emergency, and a disaster is when the whole neighborhood is on fire. So there's a difference between preparing for your own home to evacuate versus preparing your entire neighborhood to evacuate. So we're here to talk about more of the community. So the city of San Rafael has an emergency management plan. We have an EOC, an emergency operating center, and we have a plan. We have plans in place in order to make sure that things go well, and we have people in place. We cooperate with the county, and we send out messages, and we get things done. We have a system of people that take care of the problems that we find on site. We send people out. Know that there is a system in place. You're not alone. We collaborate with all the other jurisdictions, and we work together as a team. So this is a disaster management cycle. It is the cycle of when a disaster happens and how we work towards minimizing the impact when a disaster does happen. So when a disaster happens, we respond to it. Then we recover from it by fixing and putting things back in its place. But after the recovery period, we go into mitigation. So if a bridge falls, then instead of just rebuilding it, we reinforce it so that if another disaster happens, it doesn't happen again. So that's the mitigation period, and then the preparation. We prepare everybody to understand that we fixed it, we hope it doesn't happen again, but let's prepare just in case it does. So then we have that cycle where every time we have something happen, we prepare for it, we make things better. So as part of the preparation process, you think about the way that you prepare, you practice your plan, and how you can make your own plan better. So there's 3 steps we're going to go over. They're organized into 3. The first one is to stay informed and engaged, have and practice the plan, because practice makes perfect. And gather and organize your supplies. So how do we stay informed? We sign up for alerts. Is anybody here not signed up for alerts? Fantastic. Gold stars. Apart from Alert Marin, we want to make sure people are signed up for Nixle because Nixle is more of a wider net. Alert Marin is just your community, but we also want to make sure that you also register your work address. If you have children, you can also register their school or their work. If you want to stay informed where your loved ones are, you can sign up for alerts for their locations as well, instead of waiting for them to kind of chime in if you don't know about them. So if you want to know what's going on there, then you can sign up for where they are. And don't have to go over it because you're all signed up. So, yeah.
For Alert Marin, so you receive notices only if there's something happening in your community. I mean, I've never received a message, so I always wonder if I'm really
Correct.
on, but
It is targeted.
So I'm glad I'm not getting that.
Yes. Another side note for Alert Marin and Nixle, if you do change your phone number, make sure you go and update that regularly and make sure you're updated on that forefront. They also take email, they can send you alerts via email. So if your email changes, which likely it's not, I've had the same email forever, but if anything does change, you can sign up again and just add your email. So during the time of emergency, we know we get rumors. I heard this, I heard that. Even if it's not an emergency, we hear rumors all the time, right? So we want to make sure that in a time of emergency, we don't take rumors seriously because they are precisely rumors. We don't know if they're factual. So I got a couple radio stations up here where you can get factual information, like 106.9, 740 AM, and there's a couple radio stations where you can actually tune in. If you are in a location where you don't have signal for your phone and you know that you can't get alerts, you can get an NOAA radio, which will send off a really loud signal in an emergency, and it'll give you the information that you need. And you can tune into these radio stations. If you need one of these radios, feel free to reach out to me at the end of the presentation, and I can arrange to get you one. That is really important when you're in a location that doesn't have any reception. So we want to make sure that people are connected during that time. If an emergency does happen, we don't want folks calling 911 because 911 is going to be flooded with actual emergencies. We want to make sure that the actual emergencies get through. So if you need information, you can always go to the radio. You can always check emergency.marincounty.org. That website is here too. emergency.marincounty.org. And the new thing that the county is rolling out is Know Your Zone. So if you scan this barcode or just go to Zone Haven, Marin County, you're able to see a map. These new zones, what they do is they see an area and their evacuation method, and if a road is blocked for whatever reason, they'll give you an alternate route via text message to Alert Marin. You can also go to the website and look at it on the website. This is assuming there's internet, right? If there's internet, you can go to this website, you can look at the refuge area, you can see what is open and any closures in the room.
Which website do you?
It's community.zonehaven.com.
Oh my God, I can't.
Yeah, it's a little difficult. You can check in with me afterwards.
Thank you.
Zone Haven, it's not completely rolled out yet, but it is active. So you can access the website and kind of play with it. There's going to be more rolled out, more education coming soon. We're working on some evacuation maps, and we're going to put them all together and create some really nice folders for individual hospitals. So it's coming. So the next step for staying engaged, staying informed, is also engaging with your neighbors. Because in a time of emergency and you're stuck or you run out of supplies, who are you going to reach out to if not your neighbors? So you don't have to be best friends with your neighbors, but it is nice to have that communication and that level of understanding that we're here to help each other. At the end of the day, we're all a community, right? So understanding if there are some needs, whether that's physical needs or other needs that need to be met. Somebody needs help getting down the stairs. This is something that you can always help with your neighbors, and not only does it it says a lot about what they need, but it says a lot about you and your willingness to help others. So understanding that you can check in on others is a huge thing for when you're alone, when your spouse is alone, when your children are alone. This is all really important to have in case of emergency. Check in on each other. It makes the world of a difference. In terms of family, so if you're home alone and your partner or the other person in your household is out, make sure you have a meeting place. So if your other person is at work and an emergency happens, you lose all communication, then you know if home is not safe, we're going to meet at St. Luke's. If your work is not safe, we'll meet at St. Luke's, or I'll meet at your work if your work is safe. So decide where is safe, and then you meet where the middle ground of where it is safe. I'm assuming this might be a refuge area during the time of an emergency, so this might make sense to meet here. So discuss that with your loved ones and create a plan on where to meet. You all got a little trifold handed out. That little trifold, you can write all this information down. Contact information, phone numbers. I like to keep one in my car, and I like to keep one in my go bag, and I put the same exact paper in my kids' go bags and my kids' school backpacks. So everybody has the same plan, the same phone number, the same locations, and that's it for your significant other, your child. They feel safe and calm that there is a plan. We have the same plan, we know where we're going to meet. Apart from that, you gotta practice it. So if you do a drill, hey, on Friday we're gonna have a drill, or you can do a surprise drill. I like surprise drills. Scare my daughter. And then you say, we got 5 minutes, we gotta leave the house. Where do we go? Pop quiz. So figuring out where you're going to meet is really important so that in the time of an emergency, you can make better decisions because your plan is already set. You don't have to think about these things because you already thought them out in a time where you were calm. So create the plan, share the plan with your family members, and practice it. So there's a couple of terminology with evacuation. You can get evacuation order that says you have to leave immediately, don't delay, just grab your go bag and go. You have to leave now. That's when you don't have time to grab anything other than your go bag. This is why your go bag is so important, because if you get an evacuation order, you don't have time to gather things. So it's more important to have things already gathered. An evacuation warning is they give you some time so you can grab more things in your go bag. So it's really important once you have your go bag ready, you have a little list. Even my daughter has a little list. She puts the what ifs she would go get. I think I have her card with me. Her card says somewhere. She took it out. She has to update it because it's a little childish now. She had. I would go get my graduation certificate from preschool. She values that. She would go get her plush animal or her toy. So these little things that you find sentimental, that you have in a place where you want it there, but in a time of emergency you want to grab it and go, whether that's your wedding album or something else that's significant. You want to have this little list apart from your go bag or in your go bag so that, hey, I have more than 5 minutes, I can grab more things. And if you're going on your car, you can fill up your car to the brim if you want. But having that list helps you stay organized. That list should be organized by the location, and it should be organized in terms of it fits in your car. Oh, the other terminology is shelter in place. I think we're all kind of familiar with that at this point with the pandemic. Shelter in place means stay home and do not go outside. Unless you have to go to the grocery store and such. So at this point we kind of know why we shelter in place. We've got smoke. The outside is more dangerous than the inside, whether that's a hazardous spill or damage to the building or another building, or it's just not safe to exit. So we want to make sure that you understand sometimes it is safer to stay home and you don't have to leave. But if there's any moment where you don't feel safe at home for whatever reason, feel free to leave when you can. As long as you know that the road is clear, feel free to leave. You don't want to wait in line for hours on end and then you run out of supplies in your car. So as long as you know that the road is clear, feel free to leave if you don't feel safe. Even if you're staying at home, make sure you have your disaster kit, your go bag, and keep your radio stations on hand. when we evacuate, there's multiple reasons why we evacuate, but typically it's because it's not safe and you have to leave, right? So whether that's a fire, tsunami, structure unsafe, or predicted flooding, we know that if there's an order to evacuate, that means you have to leave. 2 ways out means make sure that you know 2 ways out of your home, whether that's a window or a door. Make sure there are 2 ways out of your home, because if one is compromised, then you have an alternative route. Always know 2 ways out of your neighborhood. So whether you're up in the ridge or down at the bottom, make sure you know 2 ways out. In case one of them is bottlenecked, full of cars, then you're going to take an alternate route. So always have 2 ways out of your neighborhood, 2 ways out of your home, 2 ways out of the community. You guys have one, but I think there's a way around the other way. So keep your mind open on what the alternative routes are and how people can communicate with you. Always have the option of leaving early if you feel like it. If you don't feel safe, feel free to leave. The meeting places, as I mentioned, have a local place, but you should also have a faraway place. Whether that is north or south, then your people you live with understand that, oh, home is not safe. The broader home is not safe. So we're going to meet, I don't know, you have family in Oregon. So you're going to meet in Oregon with family. And if you can't communicate, communication systems are down, you can communicate with your family in Oregon and let them know we're all heading up there, which is what happened in Santa Rosa. They were building family wherever the family was. So have that plan. Yeah.
I have a question about that. If you leave, and there's no communication in terms of cell towers or anything like that, how do you let your neighbors know that you're gone without posting my house is empty,
Oh, the evacuation tag?
Right. I mean, or some, obviously you don't want to be,
So-
moving is an issue.
Yeah.
So if you leave and you don't have another way to communicate with your neighbors, and if they're coming to check on you and see if you're okay,
So the way you could do that would be to let your neighbors know if there's an emergency order and you have to evacuate and our local area is not safe, I'm heading to family, so you don't need to knock on my door. You can let them know ahead of time, and you can get everybody's plan. Who is going to be out of the area? Do you have a place to go? Do you have a place to go? It might be a point where somebody doesn't have any family to go, so you can say, feel free to go to Oregon. I have a house in Oregon, or I have family in Washington or Nevada, whatever, and you can give them that option too. So we're here to help each other, and if they don't have anywhere to go, then you can offer a place to go, or just offer help with transportation. Maybe they don't have the transportation, so we can always help each other in finding a way to get there, but letting others know that your plan is to leave.
yeah, in advance, I think that is a great idea. I'm just thinking of in the moment and how they're worried about getting them out and then worried about getting us out or something. And, I guess I'll just find a place that I can leave information.
Yeah, you can always leave a note or the evacuation tag that we mailed out. You can always put that on your front door, and then people know, including emergency responders, know that your home is empty.
Is that evacuation tag the all clear?
Yes.
Since all them out?
We mailed them out, I believe, and our inspectors also left them out. If you don't have an evacuation tag, you can get one at the fire station. Okay. The evacuation tag, it will say your home is empty, but the benefit of that is that the police department know that the home is empty. They know the area is empty, so nobody should be out. Make sure you have insurance as well for any.
They had an evacuation in 1982 in floods, and but I remember that. The National Guard came and took all people out of there because of the flooding, and we located those downtown San Rafael. So is this something that you were discussing, like you would have that in disaster procedure?
Yes, if there is a disaster, you're going to evacuate to higher ground. If there is a flooding, you're going to evacuate to higher ground, no matter what. So you're going to find a location, you're going to get an alert that says evacuate. Maybe that alert will tell you where, or it'll tell you where to find a refuge area. But typically, you're going to, if there's a flood, you go to higher ground.
Also, there'll be Red Cross shelters over
Correct.
everywhere.
Correct. They'll eventually, depending on the level, the magnitude of the disaster, it might take a couple days for a Red Cross to get here. So be sure to have supplies to be able to take care of yourself until help can come.
What's the point of the evacuation tag? I'm not clear. We didn't get that.
We definitely get you some. The point of the evacuation tag is so that emergency responders don't have to search your home for you.
Oh, it's to put on your phone, not
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, no, you put it on your door. So typically in an emergency where maybe the structures are not safe, CERT team, if you join CERT, they teach you how to mark the doors for anybody that's home. So if you found people home, hurt, etc., eventually the CERT team or first responders are going to be looking for folks that are injured or stranded in their homes. So if you put the evacuation tag, we know nobody's home. We don't have to waste our time and we can move on and quickly evacuate the rest of the neighborhood.
And no pets.
Correct.
Is there something on the evacuation tag where we can say where you've gone?
You could, you can, I mean, it doesn't have a section, but you can staple something onto it, or you can tape onto it, or you can write on it with the Sharpie if you have Sharpie around. The material is plasticky, so you might need a Sharpie to actually write on it. Yes, Paul?
I just wanted to say, what I did is I stuck a little nail right outside my garage door frame, just there's that little nail there. So if I leave, I can just, because there's a hole in the evacuation thing, just stick it in there. Because if you're leaving in a hurry, you don't have time to write anything. You don't have time, you may not have time to do anything other than grab your bag. So your last minute list or layups, you may never get them. So really think about what's the worst case scenario, and you can practice this. How long does it take me to get out of the house? How long does it take me to get 3 dogs and 2 cats? It's going to be 10 minutes. Right? But how often do you see somebody on the news say, oh my God, I got out of the house and all I could do was grab the photos off the fridge? I mean, how many times have you seen that? And it's just heartbreaking. So come up with a way that you can just put that sign up so that our first responders aren't spending time knocking.
And you know what your neighbor's doing either, like, oh, did Mary get out of her house, or you got another cat, you know, like, it's nice.
Right.
So that-
Correct. We want to make sure the first responders understand that if nobody's home, they can move on and safely evacuate the whole neighborhood in a timely fashion. So you can help us by putting that tag on your door, or your garage, or anywhere that's visible from the street. Is everybody aware of the new high-low siren?
No.
I'm trying to play it. It needs internet, and it's having trouble connecting. There it is. I'll come back to this.
Just make the sound with your mouth.
It goes loud and then it goes down. There you go. Yeah.
It's like a British movie.
Right, that's what I was
And what is that? What is the final?
It signifies it's time to go. You have to evacuate.
That's an evacuation.
Yes. So we kind of talked about creating a plan, getting everybody on the same plan, making sure you're sharing your plan with everybody. But I also want to take a little moment to talk about your pets. Make sure you have a plan for your pets, whether that's fish or a bird or a guinea pig. It doesn't matter. You should have a container to transport them out, food for them, their medicine, and any supplies that they need. If you have an active animal, make sure you have a little toy to keep them entertained. Otherwise, they're going to be bugging you, and you have to focus on your tasks. So we want to make sure to keep the animals safe and comfortable during this time of an emergency. I brought a couple flyers for preparing pets, so we can hand those out to those who need them. As part of creating a plan, we want to make sure that everybody is aware of their responsibilities. So if somebody has the task of making sure that, let's say, the best example I can think of is children. So if you have children, who's going to pick up the children? Who's going to pick up the pet if they're at the pet hotel or at the vet or wherever they are? Who's going to pick them up in an emergency? And making sure that they're aware of that role. So if their role is to grab the go bags and put them in the car, make sure that they're aware of that. Because if they're not aware of that, then you're like, well, I'm in the car, we're both in the car, nobody grabbed the go bags. Nobody, you said you were going to pick up the kids. No, you said you were going to pick up the kids. So we want to make sure that people understand that again, they know what they're doing, what their tasks are in an emergency. Write them down, make sure you have it written out and everybody's aware in your household of their responsibilities. Make sure you have everything set, meeting locations, and those little accordion papers I gave you out, you can put your meeting location there. If you need more, I have more. So like I said, I keep one in the car, I keep one in my go bag, I keep one in my kids' backpacks and my kids' go bags. Everybody has the same plan, everybody knows there's a plan, and if they ever need to understand where that information is, it's there. And if your plan does change, make sure you update it. Phone numbers, meeting places, oh, my relative in Portland just moved, so I gotta update that address, I gotta update their phone number. So making sure that all your plans are updated and modified as time goes by. Same with your emergency kits, you gotta make sure to update them. Now, what is a plan if you don't practice it, right? We have evacuation, we mostly do earthquake drills because we know it's so important to protect yourself, your head, your body, but we don't really do practice with evacuation. So we want to encourage you all to do an evacuation drill. That can just be your family, it can be 2 homes, it can be your street, it can be your neighborhood. If you want some fire involvement, we're happy to help as well. But we encourage you to at least practice within your household of, let's set a timer. How fast can we get out of this house with our stuff? How long does it take us to grab our what-ifs? How long does it take us to pack the car? If you have a physical disability, how long does it take us to get out? How long do we need? So when you get an order to evacuate, you know 10 minutes. That's barely enough time to get out of the house. So you know that you're not going to be able to get your what-ifs. You know that you have to leave as soon as possible, so you won't get distracted with trying to do other things when you know your time constraint is what you have.
One other thing that I mentioned is check your garage, know how to open the door when your electricity goes out. So bad to get your car out.
Yes, make sure you have a way to open your garage. If you need a backup garage battery, get that.
I just wanted to say, I think a lot of people here are Bayside Acres subdivision, and we're going to have an evacuation drill in July. We've sent flyers around and emails, and we're actually going to be sending a Zoom conference call information for this coming Thursday, where we'll talk about, getting your go-karts and so on all together. So if we don't have you on our list, our email list, please see me and I'll make sure you get on it.
As you already know, the earthquake drill is to drop, cover, and hold.
Bayside Acres.
What neighborhood are you?
Bayside Acres, which is Chicken Point, Bayview, it's Bayside Acres, which is Bayview Drive, Maine, and it's Nita and Chicken Point, and part of Point San Pedro.
So if you're using a cane and you want to stop, drop, and roll, we have some imagery here. Same with the walker. Some imagery in a wheelchair. If you need these, we have a PowerPoint online, or feel free to contact me, I can get you these. Now we're going to go a little bit about go bags, your go list, and home safety. Prepare what you'll need so you have time to find what you want. Again, this is all about saving time and being able to grab your stuff to get out as quickly as possible. Because if you don't have enough time to gather stuff, you want to make sure that your stuff is already gathered and ready to head out the door. So these are the, I'm sorry?
You have copies of that list?
Yeah, so I have a wildfire evacuation checklist here.
That's right.
The fire safe grant has all the basics. It also has on the back the emergency communication plan, aside from the little foldout.
Thank you.
Yes. So these are the most basic items that you should have. And most of these items are already in your home. You don't have to go out and buy most of these things because you already have them. You should have your prescriptions and medications. You can always ask your doctor for an extra prescription, extra medication for your go bag. They're never going to deny it because in an emergency you have to have extra supplies. Water and snacks, you probably have water and snacks around your home already, so just throw some in a backpack. Make sure you have cash in time of emergency. If there isn't electricity, you will not be able to withdraw from an ATM. So having cash is crucial. Make sure that cash is in small denominators, because if you end up needing water, and all you have is a $100 bill, and that person does not have change. So you've got to make sure that you have small denominators, 5 and 10, perfect. Flashlight and batteries. Most everybody already has this. Make sure you have an extra one, or buy a small one and keep that in your go bag. A battery-powered radio. If you have a NOAA radio, that's something you can keep in your go bag. There are a couple on Amazon where you can buy a solar-powered radio. I brought my go bags from home to show everybody. I brought my daughter's go bag as well to show everybody. See, that's one deficiency already. The radio is not in here. Here it is. So we have a little radio, solar powered. It also charges your phone. So there's different things you can get that already exist. We're in a very high technology era, so you can find things that are useful. I think this was like $15. But again, I can get you free NOAA radios if you don't have reception where you live, and we can get that to the fire department. Besides, I'm sorry? A weather radio. NOAA, N-O-A-A. Yeah, so we have just regular radios that operate during emergency. Make sure you have batteries for the flashlight, batteries for the radio. Have an extra supply, and put "do not touch," emergency only on it. Make sure you keep it separate from your regular supply so that it's an emergency supply, because it's only for the emergency. Yes.
I have a yellow radio, which is a red cross one that does everything.
Perfect. Yes.
It's fabulous.
There are
But
some.
you know, one of the things I was thinking, in an emergency, we all have computers, you cannot pick your computer. So my recommendation, I use carbonite, and I have everything backed up on my computer at
Yes.
all times.
That is an excellent thing to know. Is you can back up all your documents on a flash drive. Keep a copy in your go bag. I have photos in my flash drive. So if an emergency does happen, I have all my family photos with me. And I've already experienced this. I lost my home when I was 10. I was 10 years old. I lost my home and everything in it. So I don't have any baby pictures. And it feels devastating. So making sure that you have all the photos on a flash drive is extra relieving, to say the least. So make sure you have batteries for those things. Make sure you have N95s for if there's smoke, especially with this is the evacuation tab that I was referencing. If you don't have one, we can get you one. The fire department has a huge stack for everybody. There's also instructions on how to use it. Number 1, keep the tag and string near your go bag or near the front door. Just pin it to the wall. Make sure to install the tags on your evacuation checklist. So before you leave the door with your go bag, make sure you're putting that as a checklist item before you leave the house. If time allows, install the tag in a visible location near the street when you evacuate. If you have nowhere to tag it, pin it, you can put it in the window. Just let it lean on the window or stick it in the caulking and it'll stay there. And when you return home from an evacuation, make sure you take it back and restore it near your go bag or in the same location.
And if I could add, if you're part of the Peacock Gap HOA, we've got these for everyone. We also give you a little rubber band to kind of stick through, and that seems to work for doors and other places.
Yeah.
So anyway, just if you're part of HOA Peacock, we've got.
Can you leave it on your mailbox if you have a long
Yes.
driveway? You can
Your
leave it on the
mailbox or
mailbox.
your gate, your fence, anywhere that's visible from the street if you have a long driveway. That is a perfect question. Aside from your N95, your gloves, your hat, your radio, your flashlights, make sure you have a power bank for your phone. If your phone dies, then you're kind of out of communication, so you have to find other ways of letting your family know you're okay. So making sure you have some chargers in case of an emergency is extra important. There's cheap ones on Amazon, Costco, everywhere. You can buy a power bank. They're pretty affordable nowadays with the technology that's come out. Make sure you have toiletries. So basically your go bag is kind of like a camping kit. Now you have toiletries, now you can survive in the wild. welcome to Survival 101. Additionally, if you're not familiar with your area or you're going to an area that you don't understand, make sure you have a map. So if your meeting location is Portland, make sure you have a map how to get there. Because in an emergency, you're not going to have a map available, you're not going to have GPS, so having that extra map goes a long way. Those are available online, or you can go to AAA and they sell them to you for like $3. Clothing and shoes. I like to have an extra set of clothes. And if you're like me and you change size every couple months because you like to eat, then make sure you update your clothes. Especially my kids, they outgrow everything really quickly, so I just have to make sure I change the clothes every couple months. Make sure everything fits. And make sure you plan for your pets. So aside from having to go back, I have to go back for myself, I have to go back for my kids, I also have to go back for my pet. But my pet kind of, he lives with my mom.
About clothing, I read that it should not be like polyester and things. Is there a recommended fabric for clothing?
For clothing, so if there's a wildfire, ideally we want cotton. We want long sleeve.
Cotton?
We want cotton, sturdy shoes, and hat. If you have work gloves, you can also throw some in there. There's a lot of things that you could get and use that are extra, but right now we want you to focus on the basics. And this class is mostly for basics. I also teach a second class that goes more in depth on go bags, such as container size. At the end of the presentation, if we have time, I'm going to open up my go bag and take everything out, which is another kind of presentation I like to do as well. But this is a 1 hour, this is little things at home that you can get ready now that you already have. So we want to make sure that you don't feel overwhelmed. This can feel overwhelming, but I want to make it so that you're not overwhelmed. There's a lot of things you can buy. There's a lot of things that make your life easier. There's a lot of things that you can make a whole camping kit, survival guide, fire starter. There's a lot of things out there that you could have. But these are the basics that you need in order to survive and to feel comfortable for a couple days. Yes?
Is there a shelf life for bottled water?
There is. And I go that in class too. So there's a lot of things that you could learn more, but this is a 1 hour that we have. So bottled water has a different shelf life than faucet water. So we have our go bags and we have our disaster kits. Our disaster kits are more for long term. I didn't bring mine because it's just too big and heavy. You can keep it in a bin, you can keep it in a big trash can. I keep mine in a suitcase because if I'm leaving and I have time, I'm taking it with me. Why not, right? But again, you can have it in a bin, you can have it in your pantry. You probably already have food in your pantry that is extra, or if you don't buy extra, it might be time to buy a little bit extra, or keep it separate. Up to you how you want to decide how to store it, but ideally we want to have that extra supply for an emergency. So make sure you have at least 3 days of food, 3 days of water. 3 days of water is a gallon per person per day. Now this isn't your go bag because you're not taking that with you. This is your stay kit. So if you're shelter in place and you can't go to the grocery store, the grocery store is ransacked or it's empty or everything's spoiled, you have to have enough for 3 days until help can arrive. And you're going to feel so much better just having that there. So make sure you have 3 days of supplies. Make sure you keep track of the expiration dates. So if you get everything, make sure to have a label on the container that says the date you did it. And you can even keep a checklist if you're organized. I like Excel, so I like to create little tables. And I check off and sign or whatever the date that I updated it. And I made sure everything was up to date. Or I can put the expiration date on the box itself so that I rotate the food out from my pantry and into the go bag or go box. And everything gets constantly rotated and never gets wasted. In that bin, you should also have some supplies for your pets, food, water, leash, ID, everything you need to keep your pets safe as well. Everybody, if you have young children, make sure you have diapers, toys, and formula. If you have canned goods, make sure you have a can opener, please. Same with your go bag. If you have any cans, make sure you have a can opener. There's some, I don't think I brought it today, there's some that are this big. They're called military can openers. I think they're maybe $1 each on Amazon. And those they're tiny, they're on a keychain, you can open up a can anywhere on the go. But ideally, you want to get the cans that you can pop open with your fingers, right? The other thing about food I really want to mention is make sure that the food is something you'll eat. And this goes far with your dietary needs, dietary restrictions. If you're diabetic, you're not going to have much sugar. My children won't eat certain foods, so I have to make sure to cater to their needs. You want to make sure that you're going to eat it. In a time of emergency, you're not going to eat stuff that, you might eat it, but you're not going to be very happy, right? And you want to be happy and at least comfortable and to a certain degree. So make sure that the food that you're getting fits your dietary needs. Make sure it's not super salty and you don't have enough water, because then you're going to have like a constriction there. Make sure that it's nutritious and it's things that you will eat. All right. So I know this is a little bit overwhelming. We also recommend having a car kit. If you have a car and you're not at home, let's say you're at work and they're giving you an evacuation order. You don't have enough time to go home and grab your go bag. So we recommend to have a small kit in your car. The first thing about car safety, if you're out and about during an evacuation, is to have fuel. I like to keep a habit of keeping my fuel tank at least half. Why? Because if an evacuation does happen, I have enough to get out. You don't have to go to the gas station. I don't know if you remember when the power shutoffs happened, those lines at the gas station, they were huge. They were around the corner, out the door. You don't want to find yourself in that situation, so if you keep your car at half tank all the time, then you have enough to get out to an area where there isn't a line or there isn't a problem. So half tank is my habit. Water. Make sure you have a little bit of water in your car. It doesn't have to be a lot, you can have some water. There's other ways around not having too much water, such as live straws, some filtered tablets. There's other ways of filtering water so you don't have to carry too much water. I like the live straw, they're like $10 or $15, and it filters up to 1,000 gallons. So I like to have this in my car, in my go bag, because I don't like to carry too much water on me because it does get heavy, right? So having alternatives, if you know you can't carry a lot of stuff, make sure you have alternatives, things that are lighter weight and make your life easier. In the car, I like to have an extra first aid kit, extra medication. Again, you can split up your medication. Make sure you have at least 3 days in your go bag. Have a day of medication in your car kit. Make sure you have batteries, flashlights. Some of these things you kind of already have, or they came with your car, but make sure they're working. So always check in on them, make sure they're working, have extra batteries, make sure you have your masks, an extra phone charger. There's tiny ones these days that are like a lipstick. They're the size of a lipstick, and they'll give you a half charge on your phone. So having one of those, spend $5, $10, have one extra in your car is worth having. Again, same with the maps. If you don't have in your go bag, have them in your car as well, or have extras, print them out. A sheet of paper goes a long way. Have an extra set of clothes. Most of our cars already have jumper cables, but if you don't, have an extra pair of jumper cables. Nowadays, things are very cost effective, so you can buy them fairly cheap and have an extra one. You don't have to have a fire extinguisher, but if you can, why not, right? That way, if there is a fire or anything nearby, or you're trying to get through the road and there's a tiny fire brand, you can take it out and keep going on your way. Because we don't want you touching it. That's weird. Thanks. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have the what if list, right? If you have time, you have your list of, I can go back, I have a little bit of time, I can go grab stuff. My family did that even though they weren't supposed to, and I'm a little scared that my aunt went back into our burning house and grabbed her suitcases because she was visiting us. And she was able to do that. It's scary. I wasn't home, luckily. I would have screamed, don't go in there. But this go list, I call it a what if list. You call it a go grab and go list. These are the things that you want to have. Your most needed items are in your go bag. So you grab it and you go. But then you have your want list. So that's like picture frames, certifications, graduation stuff, or maybe you have a wedding gown that you really want to save. So these are things that you really want to have, but they're not necessarily meant for your survival, right? But they're sentimental to you. So we want to make sure we have a list of them. Again, we organize them by priority and by location, because if you run out of time, you want to make sure you grab the things that you want the most. Okay? And we want to make sure it fits in the car. How long does it take? So this is where we practice. I mean, what if, like, my daughter wants to take her bike, and I'm like, it doesn't fit in the car. I don't have a bike rack.
So let's say the family, there's 4 of us, if we're all at home, should we all go in one car? Or should everybody take a car? We've got 4 cars, so.
So that would be a family decision to make. Ideally, one car would be better because then that's less congestion on the road. So it all depends on the situation and where people are going. So if some of your family wants to go to a different location, if you want to stay together, I'd prefer to stay together, because that way you have a higher likelihood of staying together, right? We want everybody to stay together, so I would just stay together. I was always taught that, okay, stay where you are, stay together, and know your phone numbers. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that you get out. So instead of risking your life trying to get more stuff, you already have your go bag with the most important things that you need to be able to be comfortable. If you didn't have a go bag and you had to evacuate and you drove away or walked away and you had nothing, like, let that feeling sink in a little bit. I was left with nothing after my house burned down, so it just felt naked. I have nothing. Now I need to go ask people for water, and I need to ask for things that it's not the asking, it's the I should have these things, right? So if you already have these things ready, then you're feeling more prepared. You're feeling less chaotic. You're able to make better decisions, better choices when you feel prepared and you have things already set in place. I can say the same thing for kids. My daughters are ready to go in the time of emergency. She herself wrote her what-if list, so she has her list of things that she wants to grab. Even if one of them is an Xbox that she can't use in an emergency, if she wants to grab that and that's what's sentimental to her, then she knows that she'll have time to grab that. So we're going to go a little bit over home safety. There's a couple things in your home that you could do to make sure that your home is safe during an earthquake or other emergency, like strapping your water heater. There's some hoodie and glue stuff items you can glue, things that break, like vases. Making sure you have gas, that habit. And it's hard for me too, because I hate going to the gas station. But making the habit of having a half tank at all times is really important. And I know it's dreadful because of gas prices. It is dreadful. But making sure you have half tank, it actually is less of a bill. So it looks smaller, right? Every time you fill up, only half tank. Oh, it's only $35. Perfect. Make sure you're strapping bookcases so they don't fall off. Strapping your television if it's not anchored to the wall. And in an earthquake or flood or anything, there's always the option of putting your shoes and a flashlight in a plastic bag and strapping it to the foot of your bed. That way, it doesn't move and it stays dry. The other habit I like to have that I learned in another job was having my keys and my shoe next to my bed. Because in the time of an emergency, especially if you don't have a habit of keeping your keys next to or having your keys in one single location, they tend to walk away sometimes. Keeping them in your shoe next to your bed helps. Then you know, I got this ready. If anything happens, I'm ready to go. So, kind of a summary. We have 3 steps. Stay informed, alert, be engaged, talk to your neighbors, get everybody together on the same page. Have a plan, practice it, make sure everybody knows their roles and what they're supposed to be doing. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. The first time you do it, maybe it takes 20 minutes. The second time you do it, it'll take 15. The third time, 10. The more you do it, the better you will get at it and the faster you can get out. And the less chaotic it'll be when it actually happens because you have experience now. I know how to organize the trunk so much that I can fit a bike in there. This is just an example. I can't fit the bike in there.
Recently there was a fire a couple acres up here on Deer Park.
Yes.
Do you have a debrief as to how that evacuation worked? Because there was chatter on next door.
There were only a 5 homes that were evacuated.
And how did they go,
They had to leave immediately.
and how did they get notified? Did door to door?
Both. So they got a text message and they went door to door.
And were there any glitches? I mean, as far as people being prepared or wanting to leave, or?
I don't have that information, unfortunately. Yes.
How do people get notified by the fire emergency if they have gates on their driveways?
They have what on their driveways?
Gates.
Gates.
Electronic gates.
I'm not sure.
I'm curious.
What I believe we have is the fire department has a remote, a universal remote, I believe, where they have codes to people's gates to be able to get in there. So with all apartment complexes, for sure, I'm aware that they have all the gates to all the apartment complexes to get in. I assume it's the same thing for homes.
Yeah, that's,
You provide the code to the fire department.
the fire department does have something that will operate your gates, but you also can disengage with a bolt that comes out
Yeah.
so that things are moving.
There's always methods for the fire department to get in.
Yeah, most of our road is elevated.
Yes.
Yes.
So you're talking about 2 ways out?
Yes.
What's the philosophy about what's going to happen with the road going the other way through China Camp?
So that depends on, go ahead.
Yeah, it's an issue we're very concerned about. If there was a fire or an earthquake, you're probably not advised to go through China Camp. I mean, China Camp is more likely where the fire is going to come from as opposed to going the other way. And it's one lane, both directions. There's going to be fire equipment. There's going to be all kinds of problems. In an earthquake, we're very worried about the road liquefying and sinking at various places. In a good storm, you can't even get past the Marine Yacht Club area, so that's a problem. So we really have one way out. If you look at the evacuation maps that have been distributed around the community, it's go down the hill, and we all know how to get down the hill. In most cases, you can't go over the hill unless you're really in the country club area. You have some access to go over the hill, but for the most part, we're pretty isolated. You're going to go down Point San Pedro Road past the high school. And we all know what happens in the morning when there's school going, and you can't even get past those signals now. It stacks up. So we're working very hard on evacuation areas. We're in negotiations right now with the Peacock Golf Club to use their greens so that people can walk out of their house and go down to the greens and stay there, or they can drive to the parking lot there. We're talking to McNear's Brickyard as a possibility of going in there. There's a possibility of Glenwood School, of using the area of the play fields behind the school, and that big area there. That's not going to burn. You better have your smoke mask, but nevertheless, you could go there. Loch Lomond Marina probably could take close to 300 cars in there. So we're looking at places to basically to go to that doesn't require going past the high school, because that's going to be a problem.
We live on Manzanita Avenue, and talking about 2 exits, the only exit is Main Drive. And then there's a road that connects Main Drive to, what's it called? Where the school is. And supposedly, the fire department has a key to unlock that gate. And, quite frankly, that makes me very nervous because there's no 100% guarantee that there won't be human error, and that maybe there are eucalyptus trees on Main Drive, they catch on fire and fall across the road, your exit is gone. If there's an oversight at that gate communicating with, what's the name of the road,
By
the next road, Night Drive. You're stuck. You have no way. My husband can hardly walk. What am I going to do? Carry him out. So I'm not happy with being told that
I
the
would
fire
keep some
department's
very
gonna
long
unlock the gate.
cutters.
Yeah.
Some very long
The fire
cutters to
department
get.
also has bolt cutters, so they're able to cut the chain should the key.
What? There are very long cutters? Who's
Bolt
gonna have
cutters.
them?
What's referred to as bolt cutters.
Yeah, but
If
who's going to have them? Who's going to be there to help us
the
get out?
fire department will.
The fire
But what's
department,
the
the police
guarantee?
department.
I think that gate should be left open. I don't think it's safe to rely on somebody coming and letting you out, because this is an emergency, and human error happens in emergencies.
Okay.
I'm not comfortable.
Can I address that? We had the same problem in Michigan,
Yeah.
because we have an area with 250 homes in he said, I have no idea whose that is. And he said, here, take some bolt cutters. And I cut it off, and I put a latch on it, and I notified everybody on that street, and said, in a fire, I got permission from the homeowner, so people could drive, in a fire, you can undo that gate, anyone can, it just comes right up.
Or drive your car through it.
And you can drive, no, I mean,
Smash your car up.
but then you can drive and exit that way, so everybody knows, because you're right, you cannot depend, car parks can be busy.
And that gate is
Why
closed
don't we
just
do this?
to
We'll
keep
take it, we'll
people
make a
from
note
walking
about
on it.
potentially leaving those open. I think that the reason they're locked is that there are kids and others who will open them up and they'll drive up fire roads and they'll end up with trespassing in areas where they don't belong. But let's talk about it with the fire department.
It was met with a couple of chuckles, but if you are confronted with a lock on a gate, hit it with your car. I mean, if it's an emergency, just drive through the gate.
My car will be smashed up and I won't be able to drive it.
No, it
I
doesn't.
mean, that's
would be
just
Okay.
the car.
It would be better to take a bolt cutter and cut it off.
Ideally, you want to meet with your neighbors and come up with a plan. Somebody will have a bolt cutter.
Or get extra keys
Or
for the
get
lock.
extra keys. I don't know where this is or who owns it. So it is a conversation to have with
And I
whoever
give
owns
us
that
all
gate.
keys.
Why don't we will make a note of it and we will talk to the fire department about it. Yes, sir.
Carson Anderson, I'm down from Chapel Cove, a small HOA down here. And on behalf of our very small 15-home HOA, I want to thank you guys for all the work that One San Diego Road Coalition and you in particular also do, that is helping the entire extended neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you. You brought up the fact that you live in a specific HOA. When you signed in, we did ask you to put the area like Peacock Gap, Glenwood. If you didn't do that as you walked and signed up, please do that because we like to communicate your names and keep track of who or which communities are doing what. Yes, ma'am.
So in the spirit of that, my name is Lynn Oglander and I'm in Country Club and we have a Firewise Country Club group that's been meeting. We'd like to expand our mailing list so that we can be in touch with everyone. We're going to be having a social to get to know more of us in August. So if you're not getting a newsletter from the Country Club group and you're in Country Club, please let me know or let Jan know.
John,
Sandy?
one of the things that was brought up earlier by, maybe it was Bonnie, was that some people got a mail-in and some people didn't because of the difference between county and city. Is there a plan to be able to have all of the addresses in the entire neighborhood, regardless of whether you're in city or county, be combined into a database so that everybody, if there's a mailing perhaps that shows in the future that Peacock Gap is an emergency place, et cetera, then everybody receives that piece of mail?
I know of no such plan because the city is responsible for the city, the county for the county. Now, I have been meeting with county people and we meet regularly with the city people, and the city, is responsible for immediate emergency response in all areas. But when it comes to, prevention, home inspections, and all those kinds of things, we got two different teams, and we have to work with them. So I think what we need to do is coordinate the mailing. If there's going to be a mailing done by the city, then we'll make sure that there's a mailing done by the county, and we'll work on that.
Yes.
I have two questions. One is the sheriff department, are they responsible for evacuating the county? Or is it the fire department?
If there's a fire and an evacuation, the city is going to be notifying everybody pretty much with high-low sirens and that kind of thing, because the city is going to have immediate responsibility for the 911 calls and for immediate response. Now, once things get going, the county's going to come in too. There will be fire units from the county, fire units from state forestry. It's going to be a big deal at that point.
Okay, my second question is, what documents should you take with you? In your go-get?
Yes, that is an excellent question.
What do you really need to have, I guess?
That's a really, really good question of what documents do you put in your go bag. And this is something I do in a second series, which if anybody's interested, please reach out. In your go bag, what you want to have at the very least is a copy of your driver's license, a copy of your passport, copies of your vital documents. You can have a copy of your birth certificate, any documents that you feel like you need, and that includes home insurance, your home insurance documents. You can have all of this as a copy, like the actual printout, in a plastic bag, protected from water, or you can have it on a flash drive. So there's multiple ways of having these documents, but making sure that you have copies are equally important. Any immigration documents, identification documents, your medical records, if those are important to you, your medical records, any legal documents that you need, home, deed, car registration, anything that you feel like is important to you, you can always have copies or put it on the flash drive with the photographs that you find somewhere.
I would just emphasize again, you mentioned it. You can go to the Points on Paper Road Coalition's website. There's a whole section there that has all of these kinds of lists on it, all this emergency information. You can go to the fire department's website, and it's up here. Go there, and all these lists are there, and pretty much everything you could possibly imagine is listed there. And you can also go to Fire Safe Marin, and they have a full website of all this stuff. Yes, ma'am?
This has been excellent and informative. Many websites have been mentioned. Is it possible to those of us who you sent this email to about this notice, to send a notice listing all the city and county websites that you mentioned today, and that would be useful to us?
Yes, I'll be happy to do that.
That would be great.
Be sure your email address is on the flyers, because some of you probably arrived here because of next door and we don't have your email address, so we're trying to get email addresses so we can communicate with everybody. But we'll be happy to send that out.
Thank you, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, but could we have a show of hands to how many people are not on the coalition email list? And if you're not on the coalition's email list, we would encourage you to go to sprcoalition.org and get on our email list, because we send out emails that will be of interest to our community, and we don't flood your inbox. So please sign up if you are not already on our email list.
The other thing I want to mention is when you do practice, you can grab your go bag, head to a park, and pretend that you're there for 3 days. Open up everything you have and say, do I have enough? Do I have what I need? Would I eat this? Is it expired? Can I open this? Make sure you have things that you can readily eat, not that you have to cook, because you won't have a stove, you won't have a fire. Unless you bring your camping gear, of course. So ideally, my go bag is everything I need to go camping at the park. That's kind of the perspective I have.
When is your second meeting that you're mentioning in advance?
You can feel free to reach out and we can schedule a second meeting. I'm happy to do it.
No, you mentioned you give another one more advance.
Yeah, so I typically do a second one, and I go in depth with like the expiration dates on the water, and how to keep track, and more in depth of go bags and some useful tools. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to open them right now if we have time as well, and just go through what I have in my go bag. If everybody wants to stick around for a couple more minutes.
Can I just get one with you?
No, but we can have people sign up, and then we'll schedule it if there's interest. Absolutely.
One quick announcement as everyone might be leaving, please take sandwiches, cookies home to the family members, the dog. Take a cup of coffee, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Any final questions? All right, thank you very much. Be sure you fill out your information.